So, it's the law. The superintendent and the principal of each school have to come up with a way to do testing. So their way to do testing is they tell me to do testing, and so that's the law. This was a big problem last year. Our irregularities as a district went up. They went up significantly. Out of all the school districts in the state, and there's a lot of them, we were 2% of the irregularities, and we're not a very large school district. So just think about it like that. There's a lot of reasons why, this, that, and the other. I can tell you the ones on this campus were all procedural, that nothing was major, and it was all just either one of them was not watching students, one of them was giving something that shouldn't have been happening, and one of them was somebody didn't read the script verbatim. So nothing bad, but we want to have 0 this year, and that's what this training is all about, is to have 0. So, of course, this training does not take the place of reading the book. As soon as books come in, everybody will get one in their box. You will go through it. You will read it cover to cover. I know you will, and we will all be great. The one thing that I can't stress enough is don't try and do it the night before, because that's when stuff happens. That's when problems happen. If you know you're giving the writing test and it's coming up March 30th and 31st, if you know you're giving that test, then read the manual and know all about writing. Okay? If you know you're giving the 8th grade reading test that week, read the manual. Okay? There's a specific section for it. You don't have to read all of it. There's a specific section and then a couple of appendixes. It's not a lot. And it'll save you, hopefully, a lot of pain and aggravation. And me, a lot of pain and aggravation. Miss Morgan, a lot of pain and aggravation. So, there's a manual for everything now. So, test security, accounting for all test materials. That's why I check them out to you. You count them and check them back into me, and I count them when you check them back in. This year, I'm going to have a sheet telling you how to do all of this specifically, because last year some of y'all are great. You turned stuff in paper clipped, everything separated out, and there were some people that it looked like they had the test just laying on their desk and they took them and literally threw them in the bin. And it took me 15 minutes to get the bin straightened out, and then I have a long line of teachers that want to get their stuff turned in so they can get back to their rooms. So just be cognizant of that. The more organized you are, I'm going to give it to you organized. I expect it to come back organized. And it's not like you don't have time to do it. I mean, you got plenty of time. Trained up personnel only. If you're not in this training today and you don't get trained, you're not allowed in the halls. You're not allowed to go down there. You're not allowed to be around it at all. So everybody's being trained, so we don't have that problem. Secure materials. So when you check your stuff out from me, you take it down to your room, you need to lock it in a cabinet, lock your door, and then you can go get coffee if you want to. Don't check your materials out from me. Go set them on your desk and walk out of your room and go do something, because right there is an irregularity. There's the first one. Okay? And if a kid happened to walk into your room while you were gone, even if they didn't look at it, now it becomes serious. So don't take that chance. Just remember, lock the stuff up. It's pretty simple. Protecting the contents. So the test booklets, of course, they're secure. Of course, the answer documents are secure, but all ancillary materials. So they rip out that the sheet for science and math. They have a formula sheet. If they rip it out and don't write on it, when I get it back, if I look at it and there's no writing on it, then I can save it and we can use it for us here. If a student puts one mark on it, it becomes a secure document. And now it has to be shredded at the end of testing. So don't think, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just some scratch paper they wrote on it and wad it up and throw it in the wastebasket. Because if TEA comes in and for whatever reason checks it and finds it in there, then it's going to become an irregularity, as stupid as it sounds. All right, so personnel training, that's what we're doing today. Security notices posted. Of course, I'll put them by the restrooms where everybody goes and we'll read them. Signed oath for each person. All professional staff, I have your oath today. Paraprofessionals, I'm going to put yours in your box and you can get it back to me. Okay, so they can all come back to me this week. So don't think that you have to do it today. I'm going to put them back over there in a minute. Test instructions followed, verbatim. No person may view, reveal, or discuss the contents of a test or answer document. So obviously, you're going to walk by and you're going to see the test. Just forget it when you walk by. You're going to walk by and you're going to look at a student's bubble sheet. Look at it, make sure they're doing what they need to, and move on. If you're giving an oral administration, you're going to actually read the test. So you need to read it and forget about it. The biggest thing that gets people in trouble is the teacher's lounge. Because they'll go in there after they read the test, not thinking, having a bad day. You just tested all day, and now these kids, they're not releasing them back to class for whatever reason. I didn't get my lunch in time. I need to go to, and you're mad, and you go on the teacher's lounge, and you're frustrated. And you say, man, and did you see that test? They didn't even pass it. Right there is an irregularity. Don't talk about the test. It's like it never happened.
And you can't ask kids how we did on the test.
So just as soon as when we're done with the test, we're done with the test. Okay? We turn it in. We move on. When we get results back, there we go. But it's one of those things that gets us in trouble, and it's gotten us in trouble as a district, is people going and venting. You just got to let it go. Trust me. When I vent to myself at like 2 o'clock in the morning, griping about stuff.
If you're gonna vent, do it at Chili somewhere.
No.
With your days of all the shirt on.
All right.
Hopefully you'll have your
All test content is considered secure until the tests are released to the public. So once they release the test, and we all use those release tests, until they do that, that test booklet is secured. So they'll take it, they'll release it next fall, then you can talk about the test, and you can say, this is a stupid question, or this is a good question. You can do all of that later. But until TEA releases it, it's a secure document. You cannot talk about it, you cannot gripe about it, you cannot say anything about it. You shouldn't even know what's on there. And if you read the test, you're an OA, you just need to forget it. Okay? All right. Test materials may not be duplicated. Copying of essays, no. Seals broken only during the testing session. If they break it and they didn't mean to, I come tape it, it's not a big deal. No person may answer a question that relates to the content of a test. No person may review or discuss student responses during or after the test. That goes back to that, don't ask the kid how they did. Because if you do and they say, oh, that test sucked, it was really hard, it's an irregularity. So just move on past it. When the next day it's like we never took a test. No person may change any response or instruct a student to do so. If you do one of these things, these are the bad things that can happen. Placement of restriction on your teaching certificate, issuance of reprimand, a write-up, suspension of your teaching certificate, or if it's bad enough, they'll just take it from you and you'll never teach again. And there's been people that have had that done since we've started doing STAAR testing. I don't know of anybody in this district, but it has happened. All right, serious violations. I'm going to go through these quickly because we don't have these on this campus and we're never going to have these on this campus. Directly or indirectly assisting students, tampering with student responses, we're never going to have that because you never touch that answer document. The only adult in here that puts a pen or pencil to that answer document is me, and I'm going to explain all that when we get into the next testing session later on down the road.
That's your public score.
No, I'm even going to talk about that.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yes.
Falsifying TELPAS holistic ratings, viewing secure test content before, during, or after an assessment if you're not an OA, discussing secure test content, student responses, or student performance, scoring the test formally or informally. So if you go by a test and you see one and you see another one, you say, oh, that kid's doing better than this kid. If you tell anybody that, that's an irregularity. You shouldn't even be looking at them like that. You should be like, he hasn't answered this many questions, I need to make sure he does that. And this kid over here, he's still working. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know how they're doing. You don't care how they're doing. You do that later. Duplicating, recording, or capturing electronically. That's one that I don't see how we could never do that. You're not even supposed to have your cell phone out.
Pablo Coronado, please come to the front desk. Pablo Coronado, please come to the front desk.
One of these did happen in the district this year. So fraudulently exempting or preventing a student from administering or administration of a required state assessment. That one didn't happen this year, but that would be if you told a kid, hey, don't come to school this week because you're going to fail and we don't want you here. So we don't do that. Wow. But this next one actually did happen. Failing to complete TELPAS online calibration of practice activities and online training courses independently. Somebody got caught, they admitted to it, they cheated. So what happened to them, I don't know, but it did happen in this district. So don't do that. Secure materials left unmonitored. These are procedural. This is kind of the stuff that gets us in trouble the most. It's stuff that we can stop. It's not major, but it's enough to where I have to write, Ms. Horgan has to write, and you have to write, and it's a painful, painful process.
More than painful.
More than painful.
That's, anything has to be written up by us both, and it's usually a page long. And then I'm on the phone trying to defend you, even for the simplest ones. Oh, no, they didn't have their back. No, they were. That is so hard, and it gets reported to CEA, and your name is there. So you don't even want to make a simple mistake. You don't want your name anywhere.
Okay. But if something happens, it's always better to tell us, and we can take care of it. Because if you tell us, it's not a big deal. If you don't tell us and then you come back a week later and you told somebody else and they tell us, then it becomes one of those other ones where it's a major one. Room left unmonitored, we never do that. Students not monitored, we never do that. TA did not ensure that students worked independently. Of course we're doing that. That's why we're walking around the room. Students were not prevented from using cell phones. We're going to show a couple pictures later. Guys, just walk around the room, make sure, ask them for their cell phones, take them from them. If you think somebody has a cell phone and you think they're not giving it to you, then you come get me. And then I'll get that cell phone from them, or they won't be in that room causing you a problem. A TA did not verify bubbling on an answer document. All right, so this has been one that started coming around. If a student doesn't finish the document within the time allotted, which is 4 hours for all tests except English 1, if they don't finish it, then it's not an irregularity. They just ran out of time. If a student turns in an answer document to you, and they haven't bubbled all those answers on it, and you don't tell them and give them back to them and say you have not completed bubbling your answer document, then that's an irregularity. So most people just put a sticky note on it and say student ran out of time when we get it, because I check every bubble on there too. And if I come to one and a student didn't bubble something in, I'm going to be coming back to you and say why. And you're either going to tell me they ran out of time, which is what I hope happened, or you're going to say, oh, I didn't catch it, in which case it's going to be you writing it up, me writing it up, Morgan writing it up, and us calling Dr. Rambo. So if you have not recorded responses on the answer document, please go back and mark your answers on it now. So they turn it in, you check it, you say that if they didn't, and you hand it back to them, and they go through and they'll find it. But you can't tell them, you didn't bubble number 13. You can say you've not recorded all your answers. That's what you can say. All right. Answer document, test booklet, and other secure materials lost or misplaced. We haven't had that happen, thankfully. Miss Sweat, are you in? No, she was in the morning. She was in there when I was freaking out last year because I was missing 10 tests. And it turned out a group hadn't turned in the test, but I thought I was royally screwed. So we had to figure it out, and I figured it out. A student was allowed to remove secure test materials. That goes back to a student, you gave them something, like scratch paper, they were drawing a picture on it after they finished the test, and they walked out with it. That's an irregularity. They cannot take anything they wrote on during the test session out at all. Unauthorized individual was permitted to transport test materials. So the TAs, the testing administrators, or me or Miss Horgan, one of the administrators, we're the people that carry the test. Students do not carry their test to, from, anywhere in the building. When we move kids, the kids that have extra time, we're moving everybody to the library, we carry the test. Students are not allowed to carry the test. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
All right. Prescribed accommodation not provided. So I get a list from the counselors and from the SPED department and from Miss Kelly, and they tell me all the accommodations that I'm supposed to provide. I go through that list and I put them on there. So if it's on the sheet, they get it. If it's not on the sheet that's on the tub, they don't get it. Don't think, oh, this student's supposed to get this and give them an accommodation. Oh, no. You call me, you say, I think this person's supposed to get it. I'll check my list. If it's not on there, I'll go find one of the counselors or the SPED department and say, are they supposed to get this? If they tell me no, then they don't get that. It's not up to you to determine that day what they get. It's written for you. And if you think it's wrong, you tell me. You don't just do it on your own. Correct materials not issued. That goes back to if we give the wrong test out, stuff like that, that won't happen. TA failed to use the direction.
But check it. Just check.
Yeah, check. That's why you count stuff out. You check your test.
Because it has happened by accident, and then the kid's taking it, and then it's 2 irregularities because it wasn't caught when it went in the basket, but then because of monitoring, it wasn't caught to make sure that they had the correct test or they were in the right section when they were taking it.
Yeah, so just that one, I'll check. We all double check stuff, and that's why you count. When you count out, you're checking me. When I count in, I'm checking you, just so we can check each other. This is one that got us last year. TA failed to use the direction or read the script verbatim. Guys, when they come to school that day, you're not talking about a test, you're not reminding them, you're not saying anything to them. They come into school, they either go to the cafeteria or they're waiting out back. You're not doing tutoring that day, you're not doing anything like that. When they walk in that room, you tell them put their backpacks up there, you can ask who needs a pencil, you get them in their seats, you hand out their answer documents. Once you open that book and start reading those instructions, that is all you can say. You don't add to and you don't subtract from. Verbatim means verbatim. It's exactly what it says. And anything else you can say, it tells you in the dark print. It'll say you can say this to the student. Now you can also remind a student and keep them on task. Hey, we need stuff like that. But you're not allowed anything else. No further instructions, no directions, no anything. When we do the dry run, you can tell them how you want it to work in there. But as far as that day, the testing day, no. All right, a TA failed to remove or cover displays. So if you're like Mr. Moss, your room is just covered with stuff. That's probably against fire code, actually. There's so much stuff.
Just barely met it.
So we cover everything, or we take it all down. We're not even going to worry about would it help them. Oh, this is a science test. That stuff's for history. We're not going to cover it. No, we cover everything. Everything in the halls comes down. So either cover your room or you take it down. And if you don't take it down, and I go around that day before on my check and it's up, I'll take it down. And I'm not going to be gentle with it because I got to do a lot of rooms. So make sure that if you don't want it ripped up or you don't want it taken down by me, that you cover it or you take it down. And everybody will know in plenty of time what rooms are being tested. Okay, I'm pretty good about that, letting you know your room is being used. And while it is your room and you cover it, it is also the TA who is using that room's responsibility to make sure that it is prepared. So if you are switching rooms, which I try not to do, and you're going into somebody else's room, you can't say, oh, they didn't cover it. It's going to come back on you too, and me. If you walk into a room and you don't think it's prepared for testing, you tell me, hey, I think we need to cover this stuff, and we'll get it covered before those kids test that day. Student not provided or exceeded the 4 hours. This is a big one in this district. We had a lot of trouble with this last year. All students get 4 hours, except for 2 exceptions. If they're taking English 1, they get 5. Or if on their accommodation sheet, it says extended time. That is the only 2 reasons that a student will get more than 4 hours. So if they don't get extended time and they're not taking English 1, they got 4 hours to take that test, and that is it. All right, so we're going to go a little faster now because I covered a lot of stuff, and all this stuff is kind of redundant. No element of the testing room or environment should hinder the student's performance. Red testing do not disturb sign will be up on every testing room. Yes, the social studies rooms will get 2 testing signs, and yes, the science rooms will get 2 testing signs. Bulletin boards and instructional displays are covered. Clocks are not covered. If you remember that one year in tax, they said cover your clocks too. That might assist the kids, but they took that back. Don't do that.
Numbers.
All desks or computers used for testing must be cleared of books. All students, if they're on a computer, must have a set of headphones. So if they're taking the STAAR L, the STAAR A, or the SOA, every student has to have their own set of headphones. They can't share them for obvious reasons. Testing administrators should be familiar with the testing procedures. A trained test administrator must be present in each testing room at all times during testing. That's why even the relievers get trained so that they can go in those rooms. Test administrators must complete seating charts for each test session. We're going to go on to this a little more in depth when we get the chart up. Test administrators must actively monitor the testing room. Test administrators should confirm that students are working only in the subject area they're supposed to, and that's what's supposed to be administered that day. Verify students have access only to allowable materials. Ensure that students are marking their responses on the correct section. Test administrators may not view, discuss individual test items. We've already said that 400 times. Reinforce reviewing for or distributing test strategies during an assessment is strictly prohibited. So this is where I go back to. You don't tutor that day. Don't do it. When they come to test that day, they go from the cafeteria to the testing room, or they go from out back to the testing room. And you don't talk to them about anything other. You don't even tell them, have a good day, or I hope you do well, nothing like that. It is all business that day, and we're not giving them any hints. Students must remain seated during testing. Common sense. Students are not allowed to talk to one another while testing is in progress. Common sense. Students are not allowed to return to a subject or area that they've done before. So if it's science one day and social studies the next, they're taking social studies, they can't go back to science. That's where your monitoring comes in. You have to check that. You have to make sure they're bubbling in the right section. Test administrators must alert students periodically of the time remaining in the test session. Students who have not completed tests within the allotted time limit must submit what they have completed. So they answer everything in the test book, and they don't put it on the sheet. TEA does not care. When I say they don't care, they don't care. They're not. You can't call up there and say they did it all in the book. It does not matter. It's going to be a no score. It's going to be an O code, and it's going to come back to an irregularity. You need to remind them to answer on their answer document. We've already talked about that one. We've already talked about that one. We've already talked about that one. Okay. After they submit their tests online or after the paper tests are collected, students may be allowed to quietly read books or leave the testing room. We don't like to pull them out of the testing room because then it takes another person to watch them. So we like them to stay there. They can read a book. Okay, if they want to put their head down and they're going to sleep, as long as they're not snoring, I don't care. If they're not bothering you, they're good. Don't let them talk. Everybody understand? It is not talking quietly. Everybody in here is done. We're going to talk quietly because that room next door may not be done. Don't do that. When they finish, they can read a book. Once everybody is finished in your room, they can read a book and stay silent until we release them. All right. Remember that you must record your answers on the answer document. Be sure to erase any stray marks that you might have accidentally made on your answer document. That is what you can say. And in the test booklet, it's in bold and it tells you what you can say. That is all you can say. All right. It is permissible to encourage students to stay on task. Communicate orally or in writing the amount of time left on the test. So you can go by and nudge a student and say, get back to work. That's okay. You can tell a student you need to work. You can tell a student, you can shake them and say, you have 3 hours and 20 minutes to complete this test. That is all permissible. Everybody understand? So don't think that if a student's laying his head down, I can't touch them or tell them. You can tell them to get back to work. You can tell them to stay on task.
That will be an exception to the verbatim rule.
Yes. But then you're not reading instructions at the time. That's one of those things. They put this in because for a while it wasn't in there, so it was kind of a gray area. So they put it in. So now we know. We can tell them to get back on task. It says it right here in the PowerPoint.
Can you tell them to slow down?
No. No.
I don't know. This is my first year.
Good question.
Here's the thing.
I'm sorry, that was.
He's gonna slow, you guys, he's going through this so fast, but he's gonna slow down to the actual administration because we realize that there's 16 new teachers and like 7 or 8 new paras. So yes, this is just the overall one, but we are going to promise you.
There will be another training before the first testing session. There'll be another training before the second test session. There'll be another training before the retest. And then all new teachers, I'm going to have a separate training for y'all before that first administration.
It's all right, he knows he's.
No. Dictionaries. Let's get back on task, people. I got 5 minutes. Dictionaries. This is because tax messed it up. Tax messed with our heads, and we think that they can get it on one section, they can't get it on another section. If they're taking a reading test, they get a dictionary. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's bilingual. It's a dictionary. They can have it. And it's not for one section and not for another, and they can use it. They get a dictionary. They ask for one. You can give it to them. If you have one-to-one dictionaries, everybody in that room can have a dictionary. For the reading test. For the writing test, they can have a dictionary. Doesn't matter if it's for the writing, they have that dictionary. They can ask for it, okay? Don't go back to thinking that you can have it on this part, but not on this part. If they're taking the writing, the 7th grade writing, including revising and editing, they can have a dictionary. If they're on English 1, they can have a dictionary. It's not during this part or not doing this part. That's confusing, so they got rid of that. If they're taking the writing test, they can use a dictionary and a thesaurus. If they're doing the reading test, they can use a dictionary and a thesaurus if they want to. All right? But only on those. The only other way is if it's written in their accommodations, which will be on the bucket, which I will post for you, and it'll be in there and you know they can use it. Other than that, on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade reading, they get a dictionary. On 7th writing, they get a dictionary. And a thesaurus, of course. Because they like thesauruses. Calculator use, this one's changed. Every 8th grade student taking the 8th grade math test will get a calculator. They have to have one. It has to be one-to-one, too. So we'll work with Ms. Myers, and she's really excited about it and all gun-ho for it this year. And Algebra 1, they all have to have a calculator. Okay. Other than that, once we get down to like biology, they have to have a 4 function, and it's kind of 1 to 5. It doesn't have to be 1-to-1. And then on the other tests, they don't have to have one. Sometimes it can be arted in, or a 504 committee can say they need a calculator, and we can provide them one. But other than 8th grade and Algebra 1 and biology, they shouldn't have a calculator, unless on their document it says calculator, or CAL, C-A-L, I may abbreviate it. It's a lot of words to write. Okay, when a student finishes, the test administrator must inspect the completed answer document. Once again, you've got to go through it and make sure they marked all those answers if they're turning it in before time. If you call time and you're taking it up, if they didn't write on it, they didn't write on it, and you can't tell them to do so because time is up. Remember, you can always tell them that statement. Okay, you may look at the answer document only to see whether responses are recorded. You may not examine the comments or comment on individual responses. All students must record their answers on the answer document before the end of time. period, not before the end of time rating. And then students will not be allowed to record answers on the answer document after the 4-hour time period ends. Note that students are not required to respond to every item, and test administrators are not permitted to insist that students do so. So this was confusing to me. I'm going to tell you, if they turn in an answer document and something's not marked, you read that statement and you give it back to them. If they give it back to you and they still haven't done it, you read that statement and you give it back to them. Okay, and if we have a problem with it, you call me in there, we will go through it that way. Just check the answer documents and make sure, all right? Don't put that kid in the situation where he missed 3 or 4 and he was tired and turned it in and you didn't go over it, so you cost him 3 answers. Don't be that person. Nobody likes that person.
So wait, I have a question.
Don't
So
ask it. I know, but don't
Okay,
get confused. Just
check.
do what I said the first time.
Smiling.
All right. You can cut it. You can cut it. All right. For STAR A, STAR L, SOA, TILPAS tax, when a student finishes online, I'll go through this with those people who give that test. Not everybody's going to give that test, but basically it's kind of the same thing. That it'll ask them, are you happy with all your responses, and you click submit. All right, additional occurrence. Breaks are allowed, the clock does not stop. So the kid goes to the restroom, the clock does not stop. Lunch, the clock stops. Kid bleeding, clock stops for that student. Okay? So you may have kids that get off the time, and you may tell one student your time is up, and there may be a kid next to him that went to the nurse that still has 20 more minutes. That's your responsibility to keep up with it. Emergencies, student place the answer document in test book. Test booklets are left on the desk, locked in the classroom. The door is pulled, and students keep testing in groups after they're back. Okay, or they don't talk. So if the fire alarm goes off, they just put their stuff in there, you leave and you shut the door. That's it. We're not worried about anything else. Cell phones collected and monitored. I told a story last year. There was a student in here. He went to the restroom. He came back, and I saw the light of his phone coming through his pants because I happened to be in here relieving. I asked him for it. He was just texting his girlfriend at Bowie. It wasn't a big deal. But I took his phone from him, and that was it. We just made sure. Now, if I would have checked his phone and he would have had something about the test, that would have been a big, big deal. But it wasn't. So just make sure you ask them for their cell phones, and then if they won't give it to you, I'll come in. Changing testing rooms. Students may not carry the test books. We've already said that. And students are not allowed to discuss the test while being relocated. All right, so is she actively monitoring? Yep. They would say
That's
no.
a no.
They would say no because her back is to students. But I'm going to tell you this. I can monitor this room and I can walk around, but I couldn't tell you if Miss Rodriguez at the back is marking on her answer document. The only way I can do that is to walk by her, right? So every once in a while you're going to have to go through the rows. But for the most part, stay on the perimeter and watch the entire class. Every now and then you're going to have to go in the middle and make sure. Okay? Obviously, if you're watching the class, you can see this. Take the phone from him. You know he's just texting his girlfriend, and it's not a big deal. Take his phone from him. Let me know,
Or
and then
Googling calculus equations.
Oh, he's not.
Right.
So, of course, this guy's creeping on the student, which isn't allowed. You can't be creepy during the test. And hopefully this lady got fired. So either way, you can't just stand behind a kid. I mean, he's not going to perform well if you're doing this, Mr. Moss.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there reading.
Learn the hard way.
So basically, these are all ways that we can screw up that we're not going to do. Okay. English 1, they have 5 hours. Everybody else has 4. Students must complete the test within the same school day. Even extra time, they have until the end of the school day to finish it. And campuses should use a clock or timer to monitor tests, so that's why we can't cover it anymore. Okay, so making the following assistive tools available. Guys, everything that's an accommodation, I will tell you. You don't have to worry about it. There's certain things that everybody is allowed. Everybody is allowed a highlighter, scratch paper, and a pencil. When they walk in, you can ask them if they need a pencil. That's it. If they want a highlighter, they have to raise their hand. Please do not go around and put highlighters on their desk. Because if you do that, you may be suggesting that they use it. Don't ask me why. I think it's stupid too. Don't do it. So as soon as you say begin and everybody's hand goes up, then you can walk around and give everybody a highlighter. Somebody asks for scratch paper, you can give them scratch paper. Everything will be in your bin. Other than that, I'm not even going to go through this because if it doesn't say it on that sheet, you don't give it to them. Unless you talk to me and we figure out that, oh crap, I messed up and they do need it. Yes. But other than that, if you don't give them something because it's not on the sheet, it's not a big deal for you and I'm in trouble. If you give them something that's not on the sheet, it's a big deal for you. Okay? So put all of it back on me. I'm walking around that day anyway. So if you have any questions, you come to me. Don't try and take anything on yourself. This is all STAAR L stuff, and ELL stuff. These are things they can get. It has to be LPAT, guys. It's not something we can just give them that day. Ms. Kelly always asks y'all, is there something this student uses in class? And then we come back to this, and if it's allowable, we'll give it to them. But once again, I ask her for a list, and I put it on that sheet. So don't say, oh, they can have it and give it to them. No, it has to be LPAT in. STAAR L, that's nothing to do with y'all. That's nothing to do with y'all. That's all me. This comes back to, you screw up, I have to write a paper, she has to write a paper, it goes to Dr. Rambo, he has to report it to TEA and say how we're going to fix it. Don't do that. Resolve any irregularities as they occur. So if something does happen and you know you mess up, the easiest thing to do is tell me, and then we can fix it, and then it is just a write-up. You're not going to lose your teaching certificate. If you try and cover something up, they can come after you. So if you know you mess up, just tell us. Everybody makes mistakes. Hopefully we have 0 irregularities on campus, and it's not a big deal. But if you
some
do,
of them aren't irregularities.
Yes.
Some of them are so simple that we're able to just say, okay, we're able to do one.
just erase it and put it on
And
the
we'd
other.
rather that than we find out later and then it became one because we didn't know.
Yes.
Just a quick question. When they go to the bathroom, can they put their answer document inside the test booklet and leave the test booklet on their desk? Or do we
Yes.
have to pick it up?
Either way. I was always somebody that liked to take it, but if they put
I've always
yeah.
taken it.
I
but
always take it too, but if they put it in there and close it and leave it on the desk,
It's
that's
fine,
fine,
okay.
because nobody can read it. That's perfectly fine. Now, they can't just leave it out laying out. Have them put it in there and fold it over.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so let's get to this real quick. I'm over time by 3 minutes.
You're fine. I said it.
So here's the thing. Every time the district screws up, this sheet gets more complicated. Do you remember when this sheet first came out? It was like name, date, and that was it. Yeah, you made your own. So things have gotten more complicated. Last year, they told a lot of people gave more than 4 hours. So over here we have, it says you're not allowed more than 4 hours. People weren't telling the kids how much time was left, and all of a sudden they were saying time, and the kid's like, I had no idea. Well, now you have to tell when you have to write down the time when you tell them the time.
That's what happens when people mess up.
Yeah,
I'm
make it
sorry.
hard. Every time a reliever enters the room or leaves the room, we have to document. We have to know everybody that was in that room and when they were in that room. And that's to cover you in case something happens later to say, well, it wasn't this person because they weren't in there then. You have to record the student. This is all has to be done. You have to record the student's first name, last name, their ID number, their test booklet number, the form number, start and stop. So they all start at the same time. And then after that, it may get more convoluted. They're all going to stop for lunch at the same time. They're all going to start back from lunch at the same time. But remember, if a kid goes to the nurse, his time's going to be off. If a kid goes to the restroom because his nose is bleeding, his time's going to be off. If a kid just has to go to the restroom, time doesn't stop. Just remember that. Okay? Major things, if we come pull a kid out, if we have a question that we think something's going on, we pull a kid, I'll walk in and say, stop his time. You write his time down, I'll take him out in the hall, I'll talk to him for a while, I'll bring him back in, I'll say, okay, you can start again. It's very rare that you'll have an entire class that starts at the same time and ends at the same time. But if you do, great, good for you.
Thank you, sir. Real quick, just want to tell these new teachers, when we get here that day, they're going to give you 15 minutes, and then they're going to say, time to start the test. That takes about 20 minutes to fill that thing out. So the first 3 years I taught here, I screwed it up every year. And I sat around and ate a donut, and I waited, and all of a sudden they're like, are you ready yet? And I'm like, no, I'm still filling this thing out. That's going to take you 20 minutes to fill that thing out. You have to put their number down, all that way you just said. So if your first year you haven't done it, tread carefully.
You'll have the rosters ahead of time.
Yeah, you can do this the night before if you want to.
Yeah, but don't wait till the day of.
Wait until the day of, thinking they're gonna mess up.
Don't wait till the minute of. Like when you get it, fill it out because it takes a while.
Well, now I send all this stuff out electronically, so you'll actually have a copy of this beforehand. If you want to use the one that comes in the bin and you want to do it that morning, great. I can't force you to do otherwise. If you want to do it the night before, great. But just realize you're going to have it. Here's the thing. I have to copy them all. I have to scan them all, and I have to send them all to Dr. Rambo every testing day.
Now that's a first.
That's new because so many people messed up last year. I have to, so it used to be, oh, I didn't do one, and it would be like, okay, do one tomorrow. No, everybody has to do one, and I have to send it in, and they're going to count them and check them. Now, are they going to go through each one individually? No, but they're going to flip through them. I'm sure they're going to print them and put them in a giant binder over there because they like to do that.
You know Rambo will look at them.
That's a lot of paper wasted.
He doesn't have any.
Quick question. Can we still make our own seating chart? Because I mess that up every year. with
No, this one has to go. This is the one you have to
Isn't
do.
there one for science though?
You can make a different one. For science, for the testing rooms, I'm going to staple it to this one, but you still have to use this one and put all their names on it.
No, we can use that. But what I'm saying is like the number chart, because my room, the front of my room, like the numbers are weird. My desks are not.
We will deal with that on an
Okay.
individual basis.
That's stressful.
All right. Basically, I sign everything out to you. You sign it in. We count everything.
Jeez.
You're lucky.
All right. So with the oath, I did not put them out for a reason. They're over here. I'm going to set them out there for you. You fill out everything but the box. Don't do the box. When we find out who's going to do an OA, then you will fill out the box. Other than that, you just fill out everything else. Okay? I don't need them today, just before Friday. So if you want to pick it up today and turn it in to me later, that's fine. Most of the stuff is filled out, just don't do the box.
So what do you not do?
When I do my OA training with that select group of special people, I will pull it and you will sign that. And that means that you have permission to view all of the other material, and you won't be able to sign that until I train you further. Everybody want to get trained right now? It'll take like an hour.
No. You good?
So since I'm going to do an oral administration training with all of those people, we're not going to cover that, 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 we're not going to cover that. All right, so I'll say this. Star M went away. Star A is in play. So Star A and Star are the same test. Star A is online. The only people that can take Star A are the people that are ARTed for it or 504 for it. Other than that, they're not taking Star A. So if you're one of those people and you see a kid walk into that testing room and he sits down to take Star A, first off, he won't be able to because I have a sheet of paper that he has to fill in. But if you see somebody walk in there and that's not supposed to be there, you need to let me know and we'll get them to the proper place. And we're going through the online tutorials. Some of y'all are having kids pull for your classes and the SPED department's taking them and teaching them how to use it. Just be patient with them. Everybody has to have a headphones for it. They can bring their own. And the setting cards for students. That if you're giving that test, I'll go through it. I just want everybody to know that there are some kids that will take the test on the computer and they have special permission for that. It's not a, oh, I think he would do better on it thing. It has to be a lot of documentation. Any questions? No. Good. All right. That's fine. So, no. Okay. Any questions, please email me. And we'll have several more trainings before we even get to the STAAR test.
Hey, after that meeting, while she's setting up,